Okay, all right. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We are back. We are going to be looking at, I guess mainly Genesis 14. I'm going to drop back and do a little synopsis of what's over in, I guess we'll do 13 and 14 and look back at the end of 12 just to catch up to where we dropped off at last week. Um, Let me pull up. Genesis, let's see where we are. I want to just kind of look at real quick the last few verses of the last 10 verses of chapter 12. If we could just read Genesis 12, 10 through to the end, which is 20. We'll talk about that a little bit, and then we'll move on to 13. Yes, Genesis 12, verse 10 through 20.
Y'all there? And a scarcity of food came to be in the land, and Abram went down to Mizraim, Egypt, to dwell there. For the scarcity of food was severe in the land. And it came to be, when he was close to entering Mizraim, that he said to Sarai his wife, "See, I know that you are beautiful woman to look at. And it shall be, when the mistress see you, that they shall say, this is his wife, and they shall kill me, but let you live. Please, say you are my sister, so that it shall be well with me for your sake, and my life be spared because of you." And it came to be, when Abram came into Mizraim, that the mistress saw the woman, that she was very beautiful. And Pharaoh's officials saw her and praised her before Pharaoh. And the woman was taken to Pharaoh's house. And he treated Abram well for her sake. And he had sheep and cattle and male donkeys and male female servants and female donkeys and camels. But Yah plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, "What is this you have done to me? Why did you not inform me that she was your wife? Why did you say she was my sister? And so I was going to take her for my wife. Look, here is your wife. Take her and go." And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away with his wife and all that he had.
Okay, very good. So you see over here with Avram and his people, including his wife, going down into Egypt because of the famine in the land, going down into Egypt. And Avram does this interesting thing of pretending like Sarai wasn't his wife. We talked about a little bit. We talked about faith last week, and we were talking about how when we look at Avram and we see what he does in terms of his initial faith, that we see him leaving out it seems as if we have this individual who is this person who's exhibiting great faith. He's showing us, he's being an example for us of what great faith looks like. And and then we see this thing happen over here with him going into Egypt, him being fearful because of the beauty of his wife, that these people are going to go and take her and kill him instead, right? Um, I never understood this. I never understood this part with Avram, especially in sight of what we see him do in the upcoming chapters in terms of his people and his basically his army that he has. Um, it seems strange that he would behave in this manner in terms of giving up his wife. Um, but before we talk about that, I did want to look at this whole thing with the idea of um, Sarah or Sarai being his sister. Okay, so if we look back, let's see here. We go back to Genesis 11 again. To Genesis 11 and 29. Genesis 11 and 29, where it says, "And Avram and Nahor took them wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Ishkah. Ishkah. But since barren, she had no child, says in 30. So when we look, it's interesting because we look at some of the who is it? I think it is Josephus. Josephus, and it seems like other commentators are basing what they say off of Josephus. But Josephus says in his let me just say what this is real quick. This is one second here. Antiquities of the Jews, book 1, chapter 6. He says these married their nieces. Nahor married Milcah, and Avram married Sarai. Talking about Avram and Nahor marrying their nieces. Um, so he's saying basically that Milcah and Sarah and Lot are all the children of they all are the children of Terah, right? Hold on. Haran. They are the children of Haran, is the one who dies. And so in verse 29, it says this Ishka person, but it don't never talk about that. You don't see that name anymore, that Ishka person. So Josephus is saying that that Ishka person is actually Sarah, one and the same. And then in his next thing, so that was book 1, chapter 6, and chapter in the next chapter of the same book says, now Abraham, having no son of his own, adopted Lot, his brother's his brother Haran's son, and his wife Sarah's brother. So we see over here potentially two relationships wrapped in one, in terms of being his brother, I mean his sister, and also the daughter of his dead brother, making her his niece. I'm not sure exactly what these things are based on. If it's like tradition that they passed down or what have you and said, I don't know. Um, but we do know that it says in let's see. Um, oh, let me find it here. We do know that Avram speaks of Sarai as being the daughter of his father, but not of his mother. Um, but even in that, they didn't have the same father. He was saying father, but he was speaking of they had the same grandfather. They didn't have the same uh, father. The father wasn't the same. It was a grandfather. They had the same father, but of different mothers. So they were separated in regards, in somewhat in regards, but then presumably connected by the brother of Avram. I'm just saying that just to say that was the thought process of from antiquity, that there was a double kind of connection between Sarah and Avram. So when we get over to this place over here with him saying that she was his sister, um, it wasn't as if he was lying about that. He just wasn't being all the way truthful about the fullness of the relationship, because it was definitely his his wife. But when we see what happens over in chapter at the end of chapter 12, in terms of the reaction that the Pharaoh has, the way he's acting like he wouldn't have even did that if he would have known ahead of time. Now we don't know. I mean, hindsight 2020, but still, um, it seems as if Avram would have just went out in faith, um, he might have had the same exact end at the end without having to go through this thing of what is going to happen with my wife with this Pharaoh when she gets took. So bringing that up just to say, when we look at Avram, and we made this point last week, we're able to see that initial act of faith in terms of going out and uh, going according to the voice of the Father, but there's a part that's lacking, moving forward in terms of that continuance and that maintaining that faith, because it's clearly not an example of faithfulness to not think that the Most High is going to protect him when he's going out in this potentially now hostile environment.
I can see that happening. Because I remember my ex-wife. She was very beautiful, and I did something similar, man. We was working and everything together, and I kind of got real respectable, like how you be working in an establishment, and they'll say, "Well, you can't work here if your family members here, or this, and that, or such forth." So I told them that my wife was my cousin. You know, I told them that my wife is my cousin for that purpose. Ain't no curses. Ain't trying to get on.
Yeah, it was like unto it in that respect, in terms of you not disclosing your full relationship. But I think the difference is that the thing that Avram did potentially could have went left.
Ugly, huh?
Yeah. He just gave his wife over to the Pharaoh, and who knows what could happen.
Right.
And he had to have known of all of the things that could have potentially happened.
Right. Right.
Maybe that's where his faith was. I know that the Most High gonna keep her if.
Yeah. And then dude was saying, "Man, why you ain't tell me? You got me on the jackpot behind this crap."
And again, it's after his house is played. So we don't know if this is the reaction that he has as a result of the thing that happened to him, or just a favor that the Most High is having in spite of the actions of Avram. Huh? Avram was tripping. Yeah, I think he was tripping too. I definitely think he was tripping.
Yeah, he was tripping. He was tripping.
He knows what happened.
Yeah.
They know, like,
his beautiful wife.
See, my life,
Yeah.
My life is valuable, more valuable than honor. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't want to pass that moving forward, because it connects with things as we move forward. So I didn't want to bypass that, but I want to look over. Anybody have any thoughts or anything about that whole thing with Avram and him giving his wife away? One of the two times it seems that there potentially could have been some extra. In my mind, I always felt like one of the two times that he did it, there was room for some taking of the situation, and I can't remember which one it is. If it's this one or not. But if nobody has any thing, then we could move on to. I want to read 13. Read through 13. Yeah.
Mike, cover for me. I'm sharing the site.
What is it?
Genesis. Oh wait, hold on. I gotta get my cursor over there. Genesis chapter 13. Class. Okay.
And Abram went out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him into the south. And Abram was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold. And when he went on his journeys from the south even to Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai, unto the place of the altar which he had made there at the first. And there Abram called on the name of the Lord, on the name of God. And Lot also, which went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together. But their substance was great, so that they could not dwell together. And there was a strife between the herdmen of Abram's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle. And the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelled then in the land. And Abram said unto Lot, there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdmen and thy herdmen, for we be brethren. Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right. If thou depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere, before Yahweh destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of Yahweh, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest unto Zoar. Then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves one from the other. Abram dwelled in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the cities of the plains and pitched his tent toward Sodom. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before Yahweh exceedingly. And Yahweh said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, lift up now thine eyes, and look from the place where thou art northward, and southward, and eastward, and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. Arise, walk the land in the length of it and the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee. Then Abram removed his tent and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and built there an altar unto Yahweh.
Okay, so over here we see where Lot and Avram, their people, wasn't able to get along with each other, right? And so I wanted to talk about a little bit this, looking at this and also moving forward into the next chapter. We look at Lot, and we can see even here, we go back to verse 10. It says, Lot lifted his eyes and saw all the plain of the Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere before Yahweh. He's looking out. To me, it just seems like he goes and he looks out and he sees all of the land and like chooses like the best looking one. I mean, Avram does give him the choice. You look left. If you want to go left, I'll go right. You want to go right, I'll go left. Whatever you choose. Um, but it just seems like well, I guess it's easy to talk about what you would do in these different situations, but it just seems like as the younger that he would just, he would take the meager, if there was meager accommodations. I don't know what the other one looked like. He talks about this other one like it was nice, not as if one was nice and the other one wasn't, but it just how the information that we have, he looked it up his eyes and he saw that this one was nice. I'll take that one. And it seems as if the way that is being described, that this place before it was destroyed was like the garden of Yahweh. It was this beautiful place that he's going to, that he takes over. But I think that knowing what happens with Lot, we're able to see kind of a thing in Lot, this kind of this drawing thing that's drawing him to these places where he goes down to these cities and dwells, near these people. He don't go into Sodom, but he's near these places and the edges of where he is, borders Sodom, which is the place that it says in verse 13 that these men of Sodom are evil, almost like this kind of parenthetical thing. He's down there by these places. Oh, and by the way, the men of Sodom are evil and sin before Yahweh, exceedingly so. So you have now this separation between Avram and Lot. And then after now the separation, the Most High says to Avram, look around in every direction. And as far as you can see, that's yours. So you're thinking about a time where you have these lands that are, these unoccupied spaces, places where you could just go and set up shop and it's yours. It'd be nice if we if we had such luxuries, because I could think of a few places that I could just go and stand and put my little flag there and just have it. You know what I mean? But and we have kind of an addition to the promise that was given before, in terms of, we see in verse chapter 12 where it talks about the fact that his seed will be blessed and all of that. But over here, you just kind of have more specifics that's added to it in terms of verse 16, where it says, I shall make your seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man could count the dust of the earth, That's how much uh, your seed also could be counted. If you could sit over there and actually count the dust particles of the earth, that's how much your seed is going to be.
Ain't nobody gonna do that.
No. But if they could do it, that's how much.
Yeah.
That's how much.
I
That's how much it
wonder
would
what
be.
the amount would be.
Probably some
Unknown
you
name.
probably don't got
for it.
enough zeros to know that.
At this point, he's talking to a man whose wife is barren.
Right. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, it can't make any sense in his mind to think about that when he has this barren wife. This,
Even after that promise, he still got a baby.
she can't have no babies. This beautiful woman who was so beautiful, he thought somebody was going to take her, but she couldn't have no
Maybe that
babies.
went into his thought process about, her being with Pharaoh. That, well, she can't have no baby. So
Maybe.
I ain't got to worry about that.
Yeah. I mean, but still, she could still get
Oh, yeah, he still get busy, but
you can't have no babies. You never know.
and on as far as Lot taking the best choices, ain't that just like the nephew would be? I'm just thinking about one of these nephews.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, I'm taking that, Uncle Chris.
Yeah.
All day.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's part of, I want that.
Mhm.
And I'm me as the uncle, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And that's what he was like. He didn't care. He knew what was over there. If you want to take it, go. Yeah. I mean, we when we look when the scripture talks about Lot, it only talks about him in a certain light. He's righteous Lot. But at the same time, we see these things that he ends up doing that we'll look at where it kind of hints to in the next chapter, which just always in my mind just always adds doubt to the full picture of Lot. Not that we're looking at these perfect individuals, because we're obviously not. But there's definitely and learn from, in the negative, in the negative sense, the opposite sense, not doing what he has done, but like doing the opposite of what he's done. But I want to talk more about this whole separation and Lot going over into or close to Sodom. But I want to talk about it in light of what we have in chapter 14. And let's see how far I want to look down at.
What book is that?
14, Genesis. I want to just read, let's see, 14, 1 through, let me get my book. Because we need all of the pieces to really get into the situation. Read, 1 through 12. 14, 1 through 12.
All right. And it came to be in the day of April, children of Shemaiah, Barak, sovereign of Elasar, Dorlaoma, sovereign of Elam, and Tidal, sovereign of Goin. If they fought against Bera, sovereign of Sidon, Rashad, sovereign of Amor, Nadab, sovereign of Ma, Shemaber, sovereign of Zidmil, and the sovereign of Bela, that is Tosra. All these joined together in the valley of Sidon, that is the Salt Sea. 12 years they served Kedorlaomer, and the 13th year they rebelled. In the 14th year, Kedorlaomer and the sovereigns that were with him came and struck the Rithmim and Asherah, the Norm and the Zun, and Ham and Emitz in Shirah, Parathim, and the Horites in their mountains of Seir, as far as El Paran, which is by the wilderness. And they turned back and came to En Mishpat, that is Kadesh, and struck all the countries of the Ammonites, and also the Amorites, who dwelt in Hadasah, Tamar, and the sovereign of Saddam, the sovereign of Amorah, and the sovereign of Adamah, and the sovereign of Seboim, and the sovereign of Bela, that is Surah, went out and joined together in battle in the valley of Saddam against Portoloma, sovereign of Elaine, and Tidal, sovereign of Goin, and April, sovereign of Shinar, and Arak, sovereign of Lazar. Four, four sovereigns against five, and the valley of Sidon had many tar pits, and the sovereigns of Sidon and Amorah fled and fell there, and the remainder fled to the mountains. And they took all the goods of Sidon and Amorah, and all their food, and went away. And they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sidon, and his goods, and left. And one had.
Okay, very good. That's the
So that's
12.
it?
Yeah, just the 12.
All right, cool.
So between the time that Lot left from Avram to over here, Lot actually lived now at this point in Sodom. We went from being down in these plains that was near, that went as far as Sodom, where now he done gravitated all the way over into this place that was full of these wicked people. So we have going on these nations. It talks about Sodom and Gomorrah, you know, these two kind of nations, and then those other nations that was all kind of lumped in, joined together, where they were loosely associated with each other, but they had their own kings. But then they were all kind of governed, I would say, by these other nations. It says for 12 years they just was able to just live like that. But then in the 13th year, they didn't want to be connected with these other nations anymore. So there was this battle that happened. That Lot, because of the fact that he had actually moved into this place, Sodom, where he fell victim to the situation. So when we look over here, you know, looking at Lot and seeing again, you know, where he ended up being, the people that he ended up being over here with, it helps us, you know, when we think about the idea of set apartness. When we think about when we think about being set apart, we think about being separated from, uh, separated from uh, unrighteousness and separated to righteousness. We see that Lot, for whatever reason, placed himself in a situation where he negatively benefited from being around these wicked people. He wasn't able to form enough degrees of separation between those wicked people and himself to not escape this whole conquering of these wicked people. And so when we think about how these things can help us in our situation, it's not hard to kind of gain some wisdom from looking at Lot and what he did and what he didn't do. When we form these relationships with these wicked individuals, when the hammer comes down on them, you getting it too, because you right along with them. There's no differentiation between you and the wicked people. When they getting themselves into something, you in it too now. And that's what we see with Lot, where again we look back at the other chapter where it talked about him going down into that land that reached as far as Sodom. That's how far the land reached. By the time we get over to here, he's in Sodom, which is different. It's different in saying that I'm in this land that reaches as far as Sodom to actually dwelling in Sodom. It's where he ended up being. So you see that he was drawn in by whatever they had going on over there, and then he suffered the consequences of it. So again, it causes us to be forced to think about this life that we live in now, right? When we're supposed to be living in the world, but we're not of the world. This is not our place. Like, we just happen to be here. And somewhere along the line with Lot, that whole thing got mixed up because he went from being in a place that reached as far as to dwelling there.
That reminds me of how I went out to Europe.
Yeah.
I wanted some chicken wings. That's all I wanted, some chicken wings. Right? That's all I want. We find ourselves in Homewood at 01 or whatever it's called. In the bar, I'm looking around like, and then you gotta go to the back to get the chicken wings. And in the back.
Hold on, you gotta say like a little code, like to get into the room or what?
Nah.
Oh, it ain't that. Because you should have known. You should have known about the code.
Yeah, it's like it's going down in the back. As soon as I get back there, everybody turns and looks at me like big bro. Who's this nigga? Excuse my language. But that's how they look at me. I'm just like, anything can happen in this environment. Like, don't it look wild? When you're around wickedness and evil, like anything.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It's like an open door. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Police run up in there. I'm going with everybody. I'm just here for the win. I go home and literally I smell like I was in the bed. and I'm just trying to wash it off my skin. I'm still smelling it like the stench of evil. It's just
On you. Dove couldn't even wash it off. Yeah. So that's something that we could look at, and it's really a direct parallel when we look at these, at the situations that we can get in. Um, you know, there has to be a distinction, a separation. You, in your situation, you was clearly passing by. There's a difference
trying to say it.
if you was dwelling and like that's now became your spot, right? Yeah, it's nice here, right? But so we're called to be set apart, though, right? So there has to be a difference between you know who we are and who the world is. Look over at 1 John 2:15, chapter 2, verse 15, all the way down to verse 17. First John chapter 2, verse 15 down to 17. Somebody read that?
Love not the world. Sorry. Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him.
Woo! Say that again, please. If any man what?
If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world passeth away, and the lust thereof. But he that doeth the will of Elohim abideth forever.
Okay, very good. So we don't know the heart of righteous Lot, but we know where he physically was, and we know the people that he gravitated to. And so when we look over here, it's telling us, right? Do not love the world, nor that which is in the world. And anybody who's doing that, the love of the Father is not in you. We definitely have to get to a place, if we say that we are the children of the Almighty, to loving the things that He loves and hating the things that He hates. If there's not a distinction, if you can't tell the difference between you and the world, whatever you are and whatever the world is, if there's not a distinction between the two, then there's a problem. We look over there a lot. There wasn't no distinction between him and the people of Sodom. That's why he got took.
It's true.
If we who are in the world, if there's no distinction between us and the world,
that could be a distinction. That's why we set apart.
That's why we set apart. So you gonna have to look and evaluate your situation then, right?
Yep.
Because it says over here, anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in that person.
And you know what? That was a key scripture while I was in Christianity. You know, when I was celebrating the customs, traditions of men, Christmas plays, Easter egg hunts, and all that stuff, I'm thinking to myself, hold up, this is the way of the world. You know, and I'm loving it. Because there's also a scripture that says, you know, you adulterous generation, don't you know that a friend of the world is the enemies of Yah? You know, so if you're a friend of the world, then you are an enemy of Yah. That kind of scared me right there, you know, made me wake up and raise two eyebrows, not one. So, oh, let me get off these porch steps of paganism, you know, and find that narrow path that I need to find. There are few finds at that. And then we're called the unlearned, and we're looked at and ridiculed because we follow the laws, statutes, and ordinances, keep the Shabbats and all the set apart days, and we're looked at as unlearned. That's the funny thing about it, man, because I came to the conclusion that these Christian apologists are on a mission to either put back to sleep or keep asleep those who've yet to awake or those that have awakened. You know? And we're setting ourselves apart from the world, in which they are a part of the world, and they love the traditions of men and the rudiments of the world. This is what I don't understand. You know, but then again, we know that y'all gave them a strong delusion too. You know, so they're gonna think the way they think, and it's their job to distract us, but we got to understand that it's our job to do what we must do too. Not engage in them and debate with them. Let them do them. Because you know, she hears y'all Yeshua's voice. So we know what to do, you know. But that scripture right there is very, very crucial.
Yeah.
Very crucial.
Yeah. So we have to be able to recognize, you know, our relationship with the world. And we have to be able to understand that there needs to be a clear distinction between us that are followers of the Most High and the world. You cannot say that you are a child of the King and the things that you're doing, the way in which you're living your life, is indistinguishable from that of the world. You know, that's a huge contradiction. And over here, it's saying that the love of the Father is not in you. All right, let me look at another verse over here.
If you love me, keep my commandments.
John 15. Regular John, Yochanan 15 and 19.
Right there.
What is that?
All right. If you were of the world would love its own. We say that again. If you were of the world would love its own. Yet because you are not of the world, this is talking to us Israelites, but I chose you out of the world for that reason. The world hates you.
Okay, very good. So guess what? If the world don't hate you,
You ain't doing nothing right. Doing something wrong.
you just fit right in.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my friend tried to make me one day. Yeah. Disgusting. I don't like it.
Did that bring a smile to your face?
Nah, I was like, what's wrong with me? You know what I mean? That's how I was thinking.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking.
Yeah.
I was just thinking because it was
Right.
different.
Yeah. So but this is where we supposed to be at though, right? This ain't where Lot was. Lot looked just like the rest of them. That's why he got took, right? But over here, Yeshua saying, this over here, your book got red letters. This is red right here. If you are of the world would love his own. But because you're not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. So I'm saying, do the world hate you or love you?
They hate me. Especially the way they be in that biblical rumble grounds. Oh, they hate us. They hate us with a passion. Matter of fact, they hate us so much, they act like they getting a commission for rocking us to sleep. Everyone you rock to sleep, you get the commission. You know?
So hold on. Oh, this is your son. This is your son. Okay, so let's look over at Romans 12. Romans 12 and 2. Romans 12 and 2. Romans 12 and 2.
Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that good, well pleasing, perfect desire of
Okay, so in us, there should be something that's being proved. In us, there should be some evidence of something, right? It says, do not be conformed to this world. Do not be conformed to this world. Because we're not of this world. We're just in the world. In fact, the world should actually be hating us. But if we think about this from Lot's perspective, oh, look at that beautiful place over there. That's so nice. It's a well-watered garden of the Almighty. I got to be over there, just close to it. Oh, wait, I'm not close enough. I got to get a little closer. Next thing you know, he's in there. And then when the stuff go down, you right there in the mix, getting the judgment that was meant for them.
The world is exciting. I have never been in my house for what's popping outside.
Popping.
the window, huh? So I mean, so it's
What's going on? There's a lot of attractions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Like they're having a
looks like
good
a
time.
ball.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, but
Brother,
right, because when you
Yeah, and then they'll have people like, oh, they never did this. I'm like, oh, no, so many innocent people, but once you put yourself in that, that's the arm of it. Like, there's no shield. What is your shield? You never what you know? What is your shield?
Yeah.
Evil looks attractive.
But I was gonna say that when you brought up
It-
light, I was
it-
gonna say Lot he was like he was righteous or whatever. And you get it before you got it. I felt like he compromised because he don't wanna win it for him.
It looks like he did, but we can't go against what this is the book calling righteous Lot. But all I'm saying is that we were able to look and see where there were obvious missteps.
He was righteous as far as calling out living no, but somewhere along the line he was compromised. I mean, he was outside of the storm. He knew was thing that come looking out, he was trying to like get them in his house and they wouldn't. He already knew how to live that. The song he was doing was compromising for he didn't even be comfortable.
Well, I mean, we could look at what happens later on. But think about, I mean, just think about it kind of just from a different perspective. When you look at something, it's never the same as when you're actually experiencing the thing. You see it all from afar, it may look one way, but now you get a little closer, and now you even get in it. It's going to be a whole other situation. So all he saw was this place that he wanted to be. There's stuff going on. But when you think about it again, when you think about, Paul talks about our carnal mind. And I think it's important for us to be able to understand the carnal mind. The carnal mind is all about our senses. It's all about, the things that we can see, and that we can touch, that we can feel, that we can taste. I was on the elevator with this guy who had this meat sandwich. It was, it was this bread and this meat. He had more meat in the sandwich than he had bread. And like there was like juices and stuff hanging off as he was sitting there eating it. I mean, it was a ham sandwich, but just looking at it, it looked like it was delicious to him anyway. It wasn't like looking at like a pile of dirt. Like you was looking at this thing. Like if somebody take a picture of like some ham with how they do it with the pineapples and the cherries, and it be glistening on it. It looked, yeah, it just looked like some barbecue meat. It just looked.
Even the seafood now, we're doing all this. I was talking to this jungle about the whole food culture. He's like, so we ain't supposed to eat this, and I'm like, no, I had to put all that because I'm a seafood lover. So she was like, she was a little astonished at the whole history, like about and stuff. Like, that's why they be just promoting them seafood boils like that. I never even paid attention to how now if you go on the town, like they be like advertising seafood, like they'll have a whole bunch of crab, they already pack all these different dishes full of crabs. It be looking so good for those who like seafood. It don't look like it's little roaches in the sea. Like if you look at nice, the lemons feel like
I gotta tell OJ. Filter better than cigarettes.
they got pork.
They got pork in them.
Yeah.
Pork, bitch, blood.
Yeah. They're in, yes, and it's in a lot of that stuff. All of those fucking things we be doing.
Even some gummy candies.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were doing it.
I just seen that.
The fake blood filters out the impurities.
That's crazy. But the point is that you have this stuff when you looking at it, it's not like it looks disgusting. We know that it is, but that's our perspective. We're looking at it through the Most High's eyes, right? But just looking at it through our carnal mind, it looks delicious. It's a delicious ham sandwich, right? But it's wicked though, right? So that's what I'm saying. So when we look over here, it's just like, we're just like kids again, having to be told what's right and what's wrong, because we don't automatically know. Because what we automatically want to do is the thing that feels right, that looks right, that tastes right. that sounds right. But it's not based off of anything but just our carnal mind and our instinct. So when we so again when we think back and we look at Lot and his situation and where he was, you know, it's something great for us to be able to learn because it's so easy for you to just get sucked in and just get drawn into these things that feel good. Get drawn into these things that make us feel good, right? Um, but at the end of the day, these things are not for us. And in fact, we should hate these things. That's what we just got fans looking at. This should be like this thing should be like the most despicable thing that you could think about. And that's really the way you gotta even look at it. If not, because as soon as it just becomes, well, it's not that bad, you're gonna be there doing it. That ain't that serious. I'm just going.
So you made me think of Africa when you said that it was like a lesson. Remember he was there? It was like heathen or a Hebrew, and it was like a lesson in that the Hebrew. He went to a cookout with his friends. And his friends was like, they're like, was someone come here? His friends like, we could just try a little bit, like, yeah, I never ate but we tried it. So then they was like, Tirsa was like, well, we equal or even. So we're like, even, and we're like, yes, that's how we said how, because he compromised with his friends. And listen, Africa said, not only not to mention it's pure garbage. She said it was pure garbage. That's what her mindset was like.
Yeah.
Just all the way, it was just, like, I doubt if she gets older and she's around some pork, I highly doubt that she won't want to eat something. She was like, not to mention it's pure garbage. And she was looking like it's pure garbage.
And that's how we supposed to look at the things of the world. Now we're talking about food because it's easy to talk about food. But there's a whole bunch of things that we could put in that category of being of the world that you supposed to look at the same way you looking at that as you can sit up there and say that some shrimp is some cockroaches in the sea. The same way you could sit up there and think of the worst kind of descriptions that you could put on this food is the same category that these things that's of the world need to be in that same exact category. These things that you hate and despise these things and don't want to be part of them in no way. Because based on what we just looked at, if you are a part of those things, what do it say? The love of the Father is not in you. If you love in these things that the Most High hate, then His love is obviously not in you. Okay, does anybody have any thoughts about any of that? Okay, let's go back over to Genesis, because that's what we're talking about here. Genesis and Lot. And let's see, we are verse 13. Let's read 13. Let's read 13 down to 20. Genesis 14, verse 13.
One who had escaped came and informed Abram, the Hebrew, for he dwelt by the terebinth trees of Mamre and the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and brother of Immer. And they had a covenant with Abram. When Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his 318 trained servants who had borne his own house and went in pursuit as far as Dan. And he and his servants divided against them by night, and struck them and pursued them as far as Hobah, which is on the left of Damascus. Damascus. So he brought back all the goods, and also brought back his brother Lot and his goods, as well as the women and the people.
All right, let's just stop right there. Okay, so all right, so before we talk about what just happened right here, thinking back to Avram giving away his wife. Over here, he finds out that his brother was taken, and also bear in mind, is calling his nephew his brother. We know that is his nephew, but it says over here, brother is taken captive. He armed his 318 trained servants. Okay, now this could be misleading. Was these people trained to be servants, or were they trained to be armed and go and take care of some military actions?
Yes,
I mean, I want to look at that word. I didn't think about it till just now.
Place in a position to serve as
Think about that time, but I'm sure for all the men. Yeah, man. They doing that. Now you have like police, like I'm gonna call somebody. They had to take care of what they had to take care of back then. So.
There ain't nobody,
Ain't no
ain't nobody
run.
good but you.
Yeah, man, I can't see how men wasn't, ready for stuff.
they're like multi-skilled, like
Yeah.
in the flock, man, you know, defend some stuff.
Hey, that's all I tell you, shalom. Everybody shalom.
Okay, let me pull this word up here. Let's see. Initiated, practice, train. Just kind of a general word, I guess. We don't have no connection with trained, instructed, designates the men of Abraham's house whom he takes with him. Rest lot, trained by him. So if we say that this training got to do with what they was about to go out here and do, and then now we see this word, this train, it says essentially it was trained by their owner, their leader, who was Avram. I think that just makes it even worse. If they're trained by him to be whatever it is that they was. And he goes with his 300 men. We're talking about these nations now, these groups of people that got multiple sovereigns over them. Where he's going with his 318 trained servants to get his nephew out of it. So why couldn't he just take care of his? Why couldn't he just take care of his wife then?
Yeah, Genesis 14.
Maybe you ain't had 300 men up there. I'm wondering why did the lots move?
I guess they wasn't so trained. I guess they just got taken over, just like everybody else did. Lot and all of his people.
Oh, they were.
Lot and all of his people got taken
If you
over.
notice, they went a separate way. You know, they went a separate way than Abraham. They couldn't go where Abraham went.
Matter about it. That they left because Lot's men and Abram's men were,
Yeah.
over there.
They was getting ready to get ugly, huh? You know, Abraham and them don't play that.
I don't know if Abraham played that.
Now I'm talking about, man, Abraham's men don't play that. See what he did with Melchizedek when he gave Melchizedek, was spoiled after what he did. So that goes to show you that he got down.
Go back to the question of why they didn't want to lie about his wife.
About his wife?
Relationship.
That is very, you know what, that right there is very interesting because it don't say, it says a little bit why, because he didn't want to get killed.
That's what it is.
I think,
The doubt.
I think it was. My mom would be here for this. I think that was, I think that it wasn't more so that they weren't trained. I think that was just doubt. Like, we don't know how this people look. They might
Play out,
have been more, they might have been more, or they might have been more equipped.
Right.
And just being of the flesh or something, he's not perfect, so he probably did a little discouragement doubt that if they did try to take her, they wouldn't win against her.
Right.
She shouldn't have been doubtful.
He was in favor.
Yeah.
Well, we got,
He shouldn't be doubtful, but he probably just was.
and it's good that it shows stuff like that because it shows you the nature
Yeah.
of the flesh. It shows you the nature of the flesh in these people,
I think what is the love that we're supposed to have for our wives?
We die for them. We die for them just like Yeshua loved the
He
church.
gave up his wife
Yeah.
to preserve his life.
He didn't die for her.
Right.
There's quite a few things people did wrong in the scriptures.
But it's
Like
still-
polygamy,
that's
for instance, it was tolerated.
He was ready to go die for his nephew.
Oh, you were down to the rest of not your
And
wife.
so this brings me.
He was afraid,
This brings me
man.
to my thought. I was waiting till we got to it,
Yeah.
but it seemed as if Lot and Abram,
Definitely ain't good.
they had a thing where they were ready to discard the women. Because Lot was giving up his daughters.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Oh, yeah,
Take my daughter.
Take my
Yeah.
It was lawful.
Wow.
That's me for the
He
same
took their rights.
Wow.
Because this gang of little men, they went in bed.
Right.
He's like, no, not
Take
take
my
money.
daughters.
Yeah.
But take my daughter, not his servant.
Man, I would have said take my servant.
But man, maybe they was right there. You don't know.
But she was a
I
virgin
would have
though.
said beat it.
Hey,
I would have
listen.
said take none. I was going to take your butt away from my door.
Not only that,
But he was
she was a virgin.
That's just how they saw women back then. too.
Well, I think it's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of that because there was a particular view of the woman, but at the same time, we do see, at least in Torah, by the time we get to Torah anyway, there's protections that are put in place for the woman. And over here, we definitely see where there was something lacking over here. We see what happened with Avram. We see later, like what you mentioned, what happened with Lot, with they're coming from the same place.
Yeah.
They had a different thought process
Yeah, maybe that's
about
what I'm saying.
things.
Maybe it was customs that come from the people,
Yeah.
back where they come from, that they were just like,
Yeah, it probably was.
And it might be kind of mixture what it is today. Like it might be still old folktales of the whole situation with Eve. Like these people still talk about that to this day. That's way closer to it back then.
Yeah.
So it's probably fresh in their memory, different things. It's in our memory, and that's like way before our time.
Mhm.
So they might have still they might have been like,
We gotta think about what Abram did. Abram did something that Adam did. You know that? Abram did something that Adam did. Adam allowed his wife to usurp herself in the authority of man when she got him to eat the fruit. He could have stopped her. Woman, put that down. What do y'all say? Put that down. Because if you notice, when she ate the fruit, ain't nothing happened until he ate it. Okay? That brought in sin. Abraham and his wife. A faithful test of time. When the angel told her that she was going to have a baby, of course she laughed, blah, blah, blah. It was an act of faith. They didn't have it because he said, Abraham, why don't you sleep with my slave woman, my servant Hagar, and I'll raise the baby as our own. He could have said, woman. What did that angel say? We're going to sit here and wait it out. But no, he didn't. Again, he allowed his wife to usurp herself in the authority of man and listen to her. You understand? Which brought a covenant of bondage.
Sure, many men would have looked like,
Yeah, well,
Well, I mean, it's something
just something to look at.
it's something that is it's something that they do in the culture.
yeah,
If a woman is barren, it's nothing for you to have a child through your maid servant.
Yeah, but this particular incident, it was already informed that the child, that Sarah was going to have a child in a certain amount of time. It was an act of faith.
Yeah,
You know?
again, we can't look at them and expect for them to be
Perfect.
We
No,
have these,
they're not
they're these biblical heroes, and we look to them and we see all of these things. But at the end of the day, they still human beings, and they still make mistakes. And we have to be able to look at their mistakes and learn. Right. So we had to be able to look at these things and learn from them, right? And learn from the mistakes, and be able to grow from them. When we're able to look and see, especially with our Ram, the progression, it's good that we see that, because we can look and see that he was, at the same time of being the father of the faith, we can also see that he grew in faith, and things that he was weak in, we see that he grew in. So it's good that we're able to see those things. I think that the best thing is for us to be able to learn from those things. But I just thought that it was interesting where you have the situation where it is an unknown. You got this guy who got away, talking about they took Lot. He don't know what he's getting into. He don't even know. He don't know what he's facing.
Right.
He just take his people and go.
Right.
And then he go and get his. I think that a lot, there's the way that they dealt with the women. It plays a big part in the situation. But at the same time, it seemed like it shouldn't have went like that.
Yeah.
You can still, even if you're going to say that there was some kind of thinking of them in a less way, you still see the fact that if he would have trusted in the Most High, if he would have exhibited faith in that situation to get him through,
Right.
He could have been able to bypass all of those things. Anyway. All right, so let's look here at the rest. Look at the rest of this 14 here. Where do we end off at? 17. Read from 17 down.
And after his return from the striking of Kilabor, and the sovereigns who were with him, the sovereign of Sodom came out to meet him at the valley of Shalom. That is the sovereign's valley. And what's that? What's that? Okay, that's what I thought. Well, Melchizedek, sovereign of Salem, brought out bread and wine. Now he was the priest of the Most High Elohim. And he blessed him and said, blessed be Abram of the Most High El, possessor of the heavens and the earth. And blessed be the Most High Elohim, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. And he gave him a tenth of all. And the sovereign of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the people and take the goods for yourself. Abram said to the sovereign of Sodom, I have lifted my hand to Yah, the Most High Elohim, the possessor of the heavens and the earth, not to take a thread or a sandal strap or whatever is yours, lest you should say, I have made Abraham rich, except only what the young men have eaten, and the portion of the men who went with me, and nor gold and barley. Let them take their portion.
Okay, so we see over here that Abraham, after he returned from striking the king
Told you about that
from over there, right? He comes back and he has this meeting with this king of Salem, who brought out to him bread and wine.
And if you notice, he gave him a tenth. It was not out of necessity. It was a free will offering. He just gave it to him.
I mean, yeah. That was a kind of a thing.
Act.
That was the thing that they did. It's a
honorable act, man. Yeah.
But when we look over here, we see this again, this king of Salem, who is coming down, where it says over here, look at 17, where it says the sovereigns who were with him, the sovereign of Sodom, who came out to meet him in the valley, the sovereign's valley, and Melchizedek. So you have those other kings who was there, who, the five kings that were there, who were part of this collective that got taken over, that was part of the the place where Lot was. When we look back and we found out about those places, those people before, this king over here was not mentioned in the list of either the five or the 4.
Mm-hmm.
And before, there was the 5 nations who Sodom and Gomorrah was part of, and then also the 4 nations that the other ones that came against them was part of. None of those ones, Salem was not mentioned in either side. But here, after this thing has happened, you see that this Melchizedek, king of Salem, comes and meets up with Avram at the same time that this thing is going on. When we talk about Melchizedek, you can't really talk about Melchizedek and not deal with the fact that he points us towards Yeshua, Melchizedek, who, first of all, brings out this bread and this wine. These things that are pictured, that when we look at and we think about, Yeshua, and things that cause us to think about him, bread and wine, is one of those things. But also we have this king of peace, right? Melchizedek in and of itself means king of righteousness.
Who is king of peace?
Right, so you have this king of righteousness, who is also the king of peace. Right. So you have these things over here that point us towards.
Also the king of justice too.
Say that again.
I said I have read before that also meant king of justice.
Said that. Sedek.
Yes, Sedek. King of justice, king of righteousness, who is king of peace. And you know the New Jerusalem that come down in Revelation is city of peace. King of peace, city of peace.
City of peace. City of angels.
So who is that? That's another story. That's another time. It's interesting though. King of peace, where Yeshua would describe Prince of Peace.
Yeah, I don't think that you can.
I mean, that's just interesting.
You can't say that justice is not part of it. But
Yeah,
I was
not. Yeah.
I was just looking that up here.
What the Hebrew word?
Huh? Sedek, right,
Yeah.
moral,
This was a
legal,
long time
equity,
ago when I was skimming through some
prosperity.
information.
Here's your word here. Just
Yeah,
or justice.
Justice, right.
Sedek.
Sedek.
Sedek. It's a compound word. Melech, king. Sedek is righteous or
Right.
just.
So it does fit here. Yeah.
So who is the king of righteousness? Who is the king of peace? Over here, it says that he is Melchizedek.
Of which there is more to learn about. But many of us have been given over to gold mines.
When we look over here, let's look at a couple verses over here. If we look at let me pull up Psalms. Pull up the Psalms. Right, that's the wrong. Who is this mysterious character who wasn't even with the other kings? He just shows up and blesses Abraham. 110. Psalm 110, 1 through 7. Read 1 through 7 there. Psalms 110.
110, chapter 110, the whole thing?
Yeah, it's just 7 verses.
I thought it was 7 verses, right? Y'all said to my master, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. Y'all send you mighty scepters out of Zion. Rule in the midst of your enemies. Your people volunteer in the day of your might, in the splendors of set apartness. From the womb, from the morning, you have the dew of your youth. Y'all have sworn and does not relent. You are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. Yah at your right hand shall smite sovereigns in the day of his wrath. He judges among the nations, Gentiles. He shall fill the nations with dead bodies. He shall crush the head over the mighty earth. He drinks of the stream by the wayside. Therefore, he does lift up his head.
Okay, so over here it talks about, it says Yahweh said to my master, David's talking, it says Yahweh said to my master, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. What in the world is David talking about right there?
I think he's talking about the Mashiach. You know? Because I don't know if we went there yet, but in the Hebrews, it talks about how Mashiach was ordained a high priest forever after the order of Melchizedek.
I didn't go there yet, but when we look over here and we see over here where it's talking about this whole thing about sitting at the right hand of the Father
Mhm.
in relation to this priest according to the order of Melchizedek.
Mhm.
You can't really separate the two. When we talk about Melchizedek, um, it seems that there's certain qualifications in order to even be after this order. And
Very special.
over here, when we see one of those things is that he sits at the right hand of the Father. Sits at the right hand. Again, it's talking to Yahweh said to my master. David's writing what the Most High said to
His master.
his master. He's
Right.
talking about Messiah.
Right. Mashiach. That's something that Torah onlys do not understand. Israel wasn't sitting next to the right hand side of Yah. Prophets wasn't sitting next to the right hand side of Yah. There's only one that's capable of doing that. That's Hamashiach.
All right, so let's look at a couple things here. Well, let's do this. Let's look at when we look at something interesting that Yeshua, does.
Mhm.
If we look at Matthew, we look at Matthew 22.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you 22.
Matthew 22 and 41.
Y'all here?
22 and 41.
Ready?
Yeah.
And when the Pharisees were gathered together, Yeshua asked them, saying, "What do you think concerning the Mashiach? Whose son is he?" They said to him, "The son of David." He said to them, "Then how does David in the Ruach call him master, saying, Yah said to my master, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool of your feet? If then David calls him master, how is he his son?" And no one was able to answer him a word. And from that day on, no one was bold enough to even ask him any more questions.
So over here we
Good.
see where the Pharisees came and they wanted to stump the rabbi.
Yeah, stop.
They wanted to sit up here and hit him with a question that they thought that they was going to set him up
Yeah.
where he wasn't going to have an answer. And then the reverse actually happened where they were put in a position where they tried to put him in.
Yeah, he hit him with
But
some common sense.
the thing that's interesting is the fact that this is the scripture that he brings up.
Right.
Is this Psalm 110,
Right.
verse 1, which actually speaks of him. It speaks of him.
Right.
So when we think about, when we're talking about who is this Melchizedek person, it's interesting that, again, where they try to sit up here and jam him up, and he jams them up with the scripture that talks about Melchizedek.
It's true.
All right, look at Matthew also Matthew 26. Matthew
Reverse.
Matthew 26, verse 63.
Right here, that
63
63.
through 65.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. Just go up to 62 to 65.
62 to 65. Right?
Yeah.
Let me know when y'all here.
Yeshua is being questioned, when he's going to court and they're getting ready to try to convict him so that they can kill him.
Yeah. Railroad and give him a public defender. All right, y'all ready? And the high priest stood up and said to him, "Have you no answer to make? What do these witnesses against you?"
All right, hold on a second. So again, they're sitting up there accusing Yeshua and he ain't saying nothing.
Nope.
he ain't talking. He just not saying a word, and they got all this stuff to say, and he ain't saying nothing, and then he keep on going.
But Yeshua remained silent. So the high priest said to him, I put you to oath by the living Elohim that you say to us, if you are Mashiach, the son of Elohim. Yeshua said to him, you have said it. Besides, I say to you, from now on, you shall see the son of Adam sitting at the right hand of the power and coming on the clouds of heaven. Then the high priest tore his garment, saying, he has blasphemed. Why do we need any more witnesses? See, now you have heard his blasphemy.
Okay, so these people sat there and asked him to say if he was the Messiah, if he was the son of Elohim. He didn't have nothing to say about nothing that they was questioning him on all this time. When they asked him this question, again, he pulls out on Psalms 110,
Again, yeah.
verse 1. The Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the power of Elohim. So when we think about the context of Psalms 110. In the first place, it's talking to us about this priest that's a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek, who is this person from Genesis that's over there who shows up out of nowhere to bless Avram after he went through this thing. So when we look over here and we see that, again, we think about this whole idea of Melchizedek and who is he. I'm saying that he must be a pre incarnate representation of Yeshua. I don't know who else he could be. Because as soon as you talk about this individual who sits at the right hand of the Almighty, that kind of takes away a whole lot of candidates for being at that place, right?
Right.
And then coupling that with the fact that Yeshua, where he gets in these situations where he's kind of saying who he is without saying it, and the scriptures that he's using is these scriptures that's talking about the one that sits on the right hand of the Almighty. And if you look at Romans 8:34, who is he who is condemning? It is Messiah who died and furthermore is also raised up, who is also at the right hand of Elohim, who makes an intercession for us. When we talk about the right hand of Elohim, we're talking about Yeshua. Right? So when we look over here at Melchizedek, again, who made this kind of guest appearance over here with Avraham, it seems to me that I don't know who it could be besides Yeshua making himself seen as a man in this place, just like we see in further chapters down where the Most High comes and makes himself seen as a man in a place. And then if we couple with that what we see in Hebrews chapter 7, where it basically is giving you the characteristics of, or the qualifications for Melchizedek, and that totally lets it be known that it can't be no one else but Yeshua. If we look over there, let me just pull it up real quick. We put my cursor on Hebrews chapter 7, verse 11. Hold on. Oh, 15. Hebrews 7, verse 15. 15 through 17. Hebrews 7, 15 through 17.
All right, let's see. Which chapter?
7,
7, 13.
verse 15
You know what?
to 17.
All right. And this is clear still. If another priest arises in the likeness of Melchizedek, who has become, not according to the law, Torah, of fleshly command, but according to the power of an endless life, where he does witness, you are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek.
Okay, so he talks about this power of an endless life. So either Melchizedek was just some random person who's kind of just exemplifies who we know of as Yeshua way back there, and he was the same guy from way back there, because he says over here he is according to the power of an endless life, or it is Yeshua. Yeshua kind of puts himself in the mix whenever he talks to the Pharisees and also the priests in the scriptures that we just gave. So we can't think that there's some other person who fits the qualification. So when we look over there in Genesis chapter 14, we see Melchizedek who comes to give this blessing to Avram, this king of righteousness, this king of peace. It looks like it's Yeshua to me. Okay, so we look back over to look back over to Bereshit, back over to Genesis.
Are we good? Genesis
Back over to 14.
chapter 15.
No, 14. That's right where we were.
Oh, 14, like 20 something.
Huh? Yeah, right where we were over there. Okay, just going back over here, we see again, we're talking about Avram being blessed by Melchizedek. We see that Melchizedek, this priest, that is a priest forever, who puts this blessing on Avram. After he had did this great feat or whatever. And then also we see the character of Avram, where he doesn't even want to benefit from the spoils of these people that he conquered over here, outside of whatever they ate while they was there. He don't want to have no benefits from these wicked people. All he wanted to do was just get his nephew and their people out of there and roll out. So even though we're able to see where little hints of Avram and his choices that he's making, we still are able to see a main the fact he's able to maintain a moral standard, even if he's not being the perfect picture of faith in every direction. Okay, so that being said, does anybody have any thoughts or questions or comments before we, what time is it?
14.
Before we are done with this here?
Yes. What I wanted to say was, we also got to understand where the Christians making that claim that the law been done away with, they got to understand that because there was a changing of order of priesthood, there was a necessity of changing of the law, which was the sacrificial law. By Yeshua being a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek, he also became the ultimate sacrificial lamb, which changed. There had to be a necessity of changing, meaning there is no longer deemed necessary to go sacrifice an animal to atone your sin because Yeshua became the ultimate sacrifice. Not that he did away with all the laws. So that must be known right there. Because Hebrews does tell you that, with the changing of the law, there also is a necessity. At the changing of priesthood, there's also a necessity of changing of the law. So Yeshua, therefore, being named a high priest after the order of Melchizedek, but Melchizedek had no beginning nor end, where Yeshua was Yah in the flesh in the first place. He had no beginning or end. Now, in the earthly flesh, yes, his beginning was through the womb of a woman, but in the spiritual sense, he was always there. That needs to be stressed.
Yeah, as far as Melchizedek and his identity, I don't know who it could be if it's not Yeshua, based on what we see in Hebrews, what we see in what we see in Psalms. And when we think about the thing that Messiah has done for us in terms of being our priest, we have to remember that what we see with the so-called Old Testament was a picture, it was a pattern of what is in the heavenlies. So it was always meant to show us something else. It was never the end all be all. It was always something that was showing us Messiah.
Always.
So throughout the scriptures, we're able to see pictures of Messiah, which is something that causes us to always be looking towards Messiah. So, when we look at the scriptures, whether it's something that's kind of more upfront, like when we look at Melchizedek's where it's so obviously Messiah, it's important for us to, throughout the scriptures, look and see, how we're able to see Messiah in the scriptures, because the whole point of the scriptures is to point us towards Messiah in the first place.
Right.
Okay, so that being said, we want to, if nobody has anything else, say that we will, y'all willing, oh yeah, y'all willing, we will be back next week looking at, continuing to look in the Torah portion, continue to deal with the life of Amram, which is so rich, and we see so many things and learn so many lessons from our father Abraham. Okay, so that being said, we want to say Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Thank you, Kima. Be blessed. Palm, all of y'all for participating. Y'all have a blessing. Y'all for one. Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.